We have about 8 ships in development, I think. We've got Starchitect, we've got Planetary V5, and we've got a whole bunch of issues going on in Star Citizen. So we're going to talk about new ships and new features. Actually, we're going to talk about new ships later in the ship tracking ship sheet feature. We have our ship tracking ship sheet ready to go. As always, we'll be tracking this in a different section, but we will go through this here on the stream. But first, we're going to talk about all the new features coming to the game and what seems to be the focus on actually fixing some parts of the game in this monthly report. If you enjoy these, check us out every month. We go over this in plenty of detail. We talk about it live here, and we probably make we mislead ourselves with speculation, but you know what? That's part of the fun. Where do we usually start with the monthly report? We start with AI. And AI content is usually more along the progress line than AI features and tech. This stuff is usually being made to affect this stuff. So this stuff usually ends up being more short. Nonetheless, last month, AI tech supported content for Alpha 4.9 and 4.10, including the reintroduction of Reco Battaglia. Man, I've got... feel like if you look up me and Reco Battaglia on Facebook, it's complicated. I'm excited for the first mission giver to come back. I do think that there's more to this edition than we've seen so far in the PTU, but we'll get to that. This created a number of challenges, including the setup and maintenance of repeatable mission comms, and for the initial releasing content to support her upcoming instanced gameplay. Well, okay, so this is now later. This is what makes me think there's more coming. She's instanced right now in the PTU. You can go and meet her, and she is in an instance, but then when you take a mission from her, you never go back, and nothing is instanced. So this, I think, is probably talking about some missions we haven't received yet that are more narrative, and include a more bespoke situation than what we have. I can't say it's going to be anything that special, but I do think it's something that's more applied than what we've seen so far from 4.10. I just don't think they've really talked about that, but we'll see. That's a guess. Considerable work was also put into supporting the new Siege of Orison content, including filling social spaces in the lead up to the shuttle, the addition of a new mission giver, and new enemies. Various bugs were tackled too. Outside of content releases, the team continued to push forward on initiatives that were kicked off last month and supported a performance capture shoot to provide additional content for upcoming features. All right, let's get to AI features and tech. This is where things get interesting and kind of different from normal monthly reports. Last month, AI features and tech enhanced the fly-to behavior. Now, heavy fighter NPCs have distinct flight behavior parameters to ensure they strafe more quickly, as it was too slow before. Honestly, I enjoy some differentiation in our combat. For creatures, work began on the initial animations for new creatures and its variants. Development of the Valakar continued with the team fixing an issue with the creature failing to hear while underground. It's a common one, I have that problem too. A bug causing the irradiated variant to not immediately emerge was fixed too. Let's go back to the March monthly report, I want to say. Yeah. So, creature content here. March saw the formation of a new team, the creature content team, to focus on the ongoing development of Star Paws. Alongside focusing on improvements to the technical pipeline, the team progressed with a number of new creatures. So that is we're seeing the first of those new creatures now reaching the animation stage. So they're getting a little bit further. I'm betting this is something that's going to arrive with Nyx 1 and the new Planetech. Seems like about the same time. I would expect this to still take a few more months if they're just only hitting animations. Possible end of year edition. Continuing on, now clock this development with the Valakar. Fixing an issue, okay? Fixing a bug. Move on to the next statement. The Valakar now also targets players correctly, has increased line of sight and spitting range, and if the player stays within this range and moves, the creature will track them and spit more accurately. Okay, I wouldn't say this is fixing so much as improving the functionality. The juvenile Sentry Valakar will now prefer to avoid close combat. Tuning, balancing. If the player enters melee range, it won't bite and instead retreats by submerging underground until the player moves further away. However, if the player enters melee range of a non-sentry juvenile Valakar, little small boy that's not trying to shoot you, it will bite once and try to avoid the player by submerging and repositioning. It will then resurface and resume spitting. I mean, if you're a non-sentry, why are you just gonna, why not sit there and brawl it out, bro? Comparatively, the adult sentry Valakar is not afraid of the player. In close combat, it will bite without retreating. So, the bigger guy. Yeah, I imagine it's freaking huge. Though the bite attack does occur less often than a spit attack, the non-sentry adult Valakar bites and spits, and once the player inflicts enough damage, enters a triggered state, chasing and biting the player relentlessly. I knew a couple people like this in college. For the Yormandi, the creature no longer gets stuck or fails to perform the major pain reaction after blowing up a shock barrel in its mouth. A partial fix was also submitted for the second Yormandi not spawning from an AI perspective. However, the bug persists and requires further investigation. More bug fixing, more problems solved. The Copion now no longer gets stuck if it cannot hit its target. It also no longer fails to give up combat if it doesn't have a target. Can't perceive targets through walls, and will correctly circle targets when required. More balancing, more bug fixing. For human combat, the devs fixed issues with mounted weapon AI failing to fire due to incorrectly thinking there was something in the way and fire logic checking if the player was on the gun too early. It also no longer gets stuck in a failure loop if an NPC fails to get on a mounted weapon. More fixing, more bug issues. An issue with the super heavy HMG backpack ammo feeders not working was resolved. Well, was solved, not resolved. So, was an issue causing NPCs who finished their clip just before getting onto a ladder to surrender when they reach the bottom. Super heavy NPCs also no longer try to use cover. I don't have to say it. Another issue was fixed where, if an NPC used single fire mode, they'd gradually take longer and longer between shots until they were taking over 10 seconds between shots, causing them to appear unresponsive. A bug related to beam weapons was solved too, which prevented impact sound events from registering on surfaces, meaning AI wouldn't respond to laser beam being fired meters away from their heads. Elsewhere, weapon selection failure debug output was improved, and reaction animations were improved across the board too. This doesn't necessarily mean that suddenly they've turned to just fixing a whole bunch of stuff. This could be the same thing they always do every month, and they're just highlighting it this month just to show us, just to be like, hey, check it out. But this is a ton of bug fixing in the AI section, more than we would generally get. I mean, we could go back to March even and just look on a whim and see what's on here. So in the March section, you know, they talked about looking into various bugs, restoring some intended de-escalation, various crash fixes were implemented, some updates to NPC behavior. They did some work on the Valakar. They do a lot of work on the Valakar and the Copion, that's for sure. And then Star Paws improvements were made. So they are doing updates to the way that these guys are working in the game. There is some balance and improvements there, but the sections are generally one or two things for a couple of different changes. This was a huge drop of stuff that they're trying to get to work better, particularly around the Valakar, which have been a focus. They've been showing up in a lot of places, and the fixes that they said they added in 4.9, I did not notice in the actual game, so this could be coming on the back of that. I think this is coming up too late to have been in 4.9 live. So hopefully we see them working a little bit better and more of an interesting enemy, because right now I think they're very annoying and almost not even worth paying attention to when they show up. Moving on to animation. They continue to work on the Apex Valakar and its gameplay attacks alongside creating enter and exit animations for new vehicles. The Apex Valakar continues to be the big one that never showed up. It's coming at some point. They're preparing. All right, art in the character section. In July, the character art team polished the upcoming super heavy armor and supported the creation of Loadouts. They're currently progressing with new armor sets and mission reward items for later in the year. Ooh. Guys, this is important. This is big. This was what we talked about in the Suit Lockers video released back in June. And this is going to pertain to Starware. Supported the creation of loadouts is it sounds early, but we'll see. We'll see when this happens. This could be very good though. This is the kind of thing that you walk up to your suit locker in your ship and you're like, hey, I'm going mining. I got to get on my my special True Def armor. I get my multi-tool, my mining attachment, a couple burgers, some Cruise Lux. I need the flare that I usually wear on my armor whenever I do that. This is so that you can have all of that just be equipped from one button. One freaking click. And we've seen it in text from them. Now, all right, I know. You hear things from CIG. Maybe it's not actually going to go how they say it's going to go. But we can at least look at what they said about item recovery last year, which does lay this out pretty clearly. So right here at the end of item recovery tier 1, which is what they're currently working on and what we'll probably read about in the monthly report here, they say that you're going to lose all your stuff, and it's going to be able to be stolen, and it's going to be able to be bricked. But also down here, it says with T1, you will no longer respawn with your preserved gear already equipped. Okay. You will need to visit a location such as your freight elevator to reclaim your registered items. Now, this is the part where everyone's like, okay, well, Star Citizen takes 20 minutes to get started because I have to do that every time I die. And they go on to say, we are developing a quality of life feature to allow you to re-equip your previous full loadout with one auto-equip button at this location. So, this is a big deal. We got to keep an eye out for suit lockers coming up more in the discussion. It's not happening as quickly as I had hoped. I was thinking maybe this was a September, possibly October thing. It's looking more end of year, but we'll keep a close eye on it. We're going to skip over the ships for now and come back to that. Economy. Chalice Beach and Ashland commodity runs have landed well with the community, and the economy team is looking forward to introducing more opportunities in the future that result in similar emergent gameplay. This one I was actually trying to jump in with Galadrim this week to try out and do some runs with his crew. Just on Wednesday, I was just going to shadow them. Couldn't get a chance to figure that out because the Star Citizen Live was kind of wild and came out of nowhere, and so we both decided to cover it. But this is good. This is good. All right, it's sure. It's just the first one, but this could be a trend of them constantly highlighting trade routes and making more interesting sandbox-focused gameplay that allows people to benefit from unbalanced economics around these star systems. And I would love to see that. That'd be sick. Continuing on with the economy, in July, they worked hard on mission and commodity balance. They're currently adding a batch of long-awaited ships to the in-game stores for purchase. All right. That's good. In 4.10, we're getting the Kruger L22 Alpha Wolf in stores, the Drake Golem Ox, and the RSI Aurora Mark II, and its modules. As requested by the community. The community doesn't have to request it. I don't know. What? This is like the person at work being per my email. Not even, actually, because per my email is at least because we didn't catch the email. Like, why it seems unnecessary. All right, graphics, VFX, programming, and Planet Tech. July saw the graphics team comparing the GI and reflections to an offline... This music's a little bit loud. Just a little, can turn it down a bit. Comparing the GI and reflections to an offline path traced reference and making various improvements. For example, the ray traced reflection denoiser now preserves finer material roughness details whilst simultaneously being faster on the GPU. The near range occlusion of both diffuse and rough specular reflections now accounts for radiance cache cell size, resulting in a closer match to the path traced reference. An accuracy issue with glancing angle reflections was resolved too, leading to brighter and more convincing reflections. Yay! Reflections. It reminds me of a Bob's Burger episode. Narrative. Okay. This is sometimes pretty interesting. Throughout July, the narrative team worked on several major projects that serve to highlight the different ways that gameplay and story align. These will hopefully be in players' hands over the next few patches. Love to hear it. Narrative supported the recent Siege of Orison polishing, which features a new mission provider representing North Rock Services who will help mercenaries pit their skills against the Ninetales' infamous Mendo Ren. Why is he infamous? I hope someday they tell us. There was also extensive collaboration with the mission and narrative designers to ensure the expanded Battaglia missions set delivers an engaging story with more face-to-face NPC interactions than before. Okay, yes. So this is the biggest and clearest confirmation we've had so far that what we have seen from Recco Battaglia in the PTU is not actually her content. And it explains why this monthly report we saw, or not monthly report, this roadmap roundup that we last got threw into some question that Recco was going to make it in. They said that the mission giver Recco Battaglia remains tentative while the team continues implementing her and her missions for future 4.10 PTU work. About 2 days after this, Recco Battaglia was brought into the PTU. That was surprising because she had just been called tentative. So I was thinking, maybe they got it figured out. Maybe I don't know, something happened. I also was thinking maybe they haven't added everything in the PTU yet, and it's looking like that's the case. So we'll keep an eye out for these missions to be added at some point. I'm guessing there's some kind of issue going on with the actual instance missions playing out. This is instancing out in the wild. So a new application of the feature set. But really, this and Siege of Orison are the most important parts of the game because these are the tests of new tech. New tech is generally what's going to allow for the most new expansions of the game in terms of instancing different stuff and bringing in more dungeons. It also is what's going to most likely break the game, so it needs to work best, and I hope they can get this figured out. For this reason, I hope they're spending another 2 weeks on the PTU. Beyond this, though, multiple writers worked on missions for the incoming Starchitect locations. Dude! This new technology will allow for more places to visit than ever before, and the team is helping to make sure there are new contracts to experience. Alright, I have been holding off on doing this. We're gonna make a new database. It's gonna track the features, alright? Every month, we track monthly reports and follow the features in Star Citizen's development. Things like item recovery, Starchitect, refining, crafting, Maelstrom, Planetary V5, and we need to make another database like the ship tracking ship sheet that helps us track these features throughout every month and puts down the notes for each monthly report we get for each feature. Please make that a database on this page. All right, I've been holding off on that. We're going to make one of these because we need to start. I would like to start tracking things, just the big ones. I don't want to track every single feature on here, which is why I wasn't doing it. I was mainly just trying to stick to, I was thinking, how are we going to track every single little thing? So instead, we're going to track the big ones like Starchitect, and we're going to start doing the same thing we do with the ship tracking page every month, and try to keep track of them. We'll see how that goes. Going on from Starchitect, this new technology will allow for more places to visit than ever before, and the team is helping to make sure there are new contracts to experience. This is pretty important because one of the biggest problems that Star Citizen has, a lot of the biggest problems that Star Citizen have come from the fact that everything is so spread out. And if they made everything closer together, it would ruin the scale of the game, right? It would just destroy the whole idea that you have these large star systems with all this stuff happening. So their solution, which they've been working on for like 3 years now, has been this Starchitect thing. And they've been pretty quiet about it for most of the development. But it has been ongoing, and this year it's gotten a lot louder. They've started sharing more about it, and now they're starting to talk about how missions are going to be grouped in with these locations, and they're aiming to try and solve that problem of people have to travel too much to get to things. If one thing is broken, the next thing that works is still far away. If you want to do any kind of mission, it requires you to like take some trip to another planet or moon or something, and they want to make more localized gameplay. That is what the whole point of this is. I actually think a rather large portion of the game not being monotonous relies on this working. So hopefully it works. Additionally, Narrative worked on missions for a new guild that will be introduced alongside an all-new gameplay style. What does that mean? What is an all-new gameplay style? I genuinely hope it's refining. Ideas from chat. I would love to hear what you guys think of this, because it's not necessarily gameplay loop per se. I think if we go back to... It might be here. Let's see. Possibly the February monthly report. They said something similar to this. There we go. This one. Looking ahead, the team wrote scripts and completed a capture session for a variety of new NPCs. This work is related to an upcoming gameplay loop that will be released later this year and includes a new faction representative. So did we ever get this? Was this refueling? Was there a new representative with the refueling missions? If we confirm that, if anybody in chat can confirm there was a new representative, then this is probably how they introduced refueling. They called it a full gameplay loop. In this new monthly report, they're calling it an all new gameplay style. Now, maybe two different people wrote this. I don't know. But this is why we sit here and go over this in stupid detail. There was some mission giver. Yeah. There was new rep. Okay. So that was probably refueling being introduced in February, which means that, yeah, I mean, this could be something interesting. This could be something relatively small, but it is new gameplay style. I just don't know if that means there are new features involved. This could honestly be more like repair missions or something. I don't know. Either way, it is interesting. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll put it down on our tracking sheet, which should probably be done by now. Let's continue. Finally, for July, the team wrote several scripts for a performance capture session that included bringing back several faction representatives to record updated line sets to match the current mission system. They're doing a lot of updates on content. It gets me excited. Part of it also gets me worried. I'm like, guys, we still got to get a bunch of features in before we get too content heavy. All right, online technology. July saw the network team focused on two major areas. Firstly, making the game server infrastructure smarter and more reliable, laying the groundwork for more dynamic server meshing management in the future. On the server load side, the team resolved several bugs affecting how the game servers measure and report how busy they were, delivering a fix that ensures this data is now captured and reported accurately. They also cleaned up the way load is calculated and removed an outdated component that didn't accurately reflect real server performance. Together, these changes provided a more clear picture of how hard each server is working at any given moment. On the server distribution side, the devs have been developing and testing a system that allows servers to scale up and down based on demand. What? That's a big deal, guys. That's server meshing. Work is underway to allow extra game servers to be requested automatically when a busy event puts heavy load on the network and then release them when no longer needed. Progress was also made on a smarter way to divide the game world into regions that can each be handled by their own server, including support for grid-based spatial mapping that makes it easier to pinpoint exactly which servers should be responsible for specific areas of space. Okay, there are two videos that I am going to make from this stuff. First, all new gameplay style. Second, they're just kind of casually talking about server meshing here. Throughout the month, the online services team resolved dozens of player-reported bugs while continuing work on several key features, with the biggest area of focus remaining item recovery. This is a big one I said we were going to probably get to later. Current development includes various improvements that will let players reclaim items lost to bugs or crashes while detailed planning was done with the UI designers on exactly how players will see and select which lost items to recover, including very large collections. All right, couple things to note here. First, item recovery is very closely related to Starware, which I'm hoping is closely related to loadouts and therefore suit lockers. I'm crossing my fingers and I'm huffing a lot of copium here with this, so bear with me that we're gonna see item recovery for items, suit lockers, Starware, and loadouts All delivered in 4.11. I know. That would be nuts. But like, what if it did happen? Okay. Now, the reason that I'm hoping that this happens is because if we go to this guy, and you look at, so this all got updated. I'm gonna have to go find Ruben. Mr. Ruben Saurus. There we go. All right, so there were some problems with the recent item flare that was posted for subscribers. Here we go. And Ruben had a good tweet that highlighted it. So you can see that it has both the beanie and the balaclava on it. You can see down here, it says to help you rip around the platforms of Orison, August ships of the month are small but rapid hover bikes. Both of those things can't happen in the game. He called this out. Jared responded and said, for what it's worth, the mask and the beanie are wearable in Starware, which missed inclusion in this patch. So it's pretty close. The art was made before the decision was it should work as advertised when the systems come online. This, when does the system come on? Then you can also go back to the actual post and see that they both removed the beanie and removed mention of the Orison platforms using hover bikes, because what the hell? You can't do that. But if you go back to Star Citizen, inside Star Citizen.
So that's all I got for you now. Be sure you jump in next week to experience Alpha 4.9 yourself. And remember that not every fix being prioritized and work done now will come all at once. Also, there was much rejoicing.
Here.
Yay! And ahead of Starware, which I'll go ahead and tell you is currently tracking for 4.11 in September across.
All right, so that's the confirmation we have of when it's coming now. This is CIG. It might not happen, but that's the plan. And I do think this lines up pretty well with a couple other things that could be moving along. In the last monthly report, we also saw the interface for Starware, which is really just the inventory with a very, very slight changes to help. So this is the inventory, and they said here that work also began on Starware's UI, which took several iterations with UX design to get right, given the complexity of the equipment rules. Now, I don't know if this is considered the UI. It looks mostly the same as what we have in the inventory, but they have been working on Starware UI. And we're seeing some talk of item recovery go on here. This is all just connecting dots, but I hope that this stuff is coming together in 4.11. We'll see. Current development includes improvements that will let players reclaim items lost to bugs or crashes, while detailed planning was done with the UI designers on how exactly players will see and select which lost items to recover, including very large collections. Now, this does make it sound like this is further out than 4.11. Like, if they're just doing detailed planning on how this stuff works, then this sounds like it's maybe the end of this year, if we're lucky. Maybe they will surprise us, but this already is, it's not a great sign. A major push also went into improving server stability tied to how missions and delivery contracts are generated behind the scenes. The team found that the current system was creating far too much background data, putting strain on the servers and contributing to instability players may have noticed in-game. So this is another time where they are very clearly pointing out something, like they're saying all of these things like they're answering to the community, which is kind of funny. I think the funniest part is where they say it about the new ships coming in, wherever that is, as if we need to tell them that ships are supposed to go in the shop. But this is another fairly big opportunity for them to say we're fixing something that might be causing major problems in the game. We'll see. We will see how far this really goes. Several dedicated design sessions were also held to plan a proper rebuild of the system to make it faster and more reliable going forward. Again, we'll wait to see it. The team also continued with early designs for crafting and refining. So I think that pretty squarely tells us that this will not be refining. if they're doing early designs, man, I hope, God, that's I hope that does not mean the game. This is just online technology. I really hope the gameplay team isn't doing early design work for refining. That would be very disappointing. They're working through how crafted or upgraded items will interact with players' existing gear and protections such as insurance. So this is not on the gameplay side of things. In July, the Live Tools team wrapped up several major initiatives across all 3 of their internal tools. The most significant was Hex, the internal platform for player support and operations staff. The first part of the Hex 4.0 feature parity effort was completed. This involved rebuilding the redesigned platform core investigation tools, including inventory and ownership records, sanction and infraction detail pages, and reputation and ledger views. A second round of user research wrapped up and is now feeding into pre-release UX work. Attention then turned into getting Hex 4 release ready, alongside further Citadel work on role-based access. Hex is what they use to track, well, all of this stuff, really. It's all of the player stats. It's just a back-end tool they made for the company. I do believe that Turbulent made it, or at least was running it for a while. On Bootstrap, the tool developers use to set up their local work environments, the team drafted a technical design document for a full client revamp, capturing the current pain points, a set of near-term improvements, and a longer-term front-end rewrite. Work then turned to finalizing the plan and starting the rebuild. For error reporting, the team completed the automatic handling of crash reports tied to a known hardware fault affecting 13th and 14th generation Intel processors, which will noticeably reduce manual triage for operations staff. Panic Switch, has also received post-launch polish, including a cleaner rule creation flow that handles stream and matcher rules separately and automatically detects malformed payloads. Okay, sure. I couldn't have, yeah, absolutely. The R&D team's July work covered 2 areas, adding snow and expanded weather behavior to the planet simulation and improving cloud rendering performance. That's cool. That's interesting. For weather and snow, the devs implemented a time of day dependent local temperature model that draws on planetary conditions such as elevation, humidity, wind, and broader climate properties. They weren't tracking time of day for temperature? Okay, maybe that's just for the precipitation, because we definitely, I think, felt that. Precipitation is now driven by local temperature. Okay, yeah, that must be what they're saying. Precipitation probability and said planetary conditions to determine where and how much it rains or snows. Snow accumulation will interoperate with rain accumulation, while rain accumulation runs stably over long periods and mild precipitation without numerical precision issues. Snow accumulation will work similarly. Sick! There was a picture somebody made a long time ago. If you were around, man, probably like 10 years ago now. This must have been maybe 9 years ago, but if I search Star Citizen, I bet this picture will come up. Star Citizen Snow Cutlass. This picture is the first one that pops up. I don't know why I know this picture. I think it was posted to the subreddit, but I remember we looked at it so much. I think maybe it was based on another picture that CIG had released. We looked at this so much and we're like, oh my god, how amazing would this be on Microtech to like have snow accumulation and see the tires, and like it was a vibe. And I've always thought of this whenever I thought of snow in this game. So pretty excited to hear they're finally working on snow accumulation. That's pretty cool. Additional weather work included a local precipitation and lightning probability model. This is driven by local climate conditions and an approximate cloud coverage calculation used to evaluate local temperature, precipitation, and lighting. Local temperature and snow amount were exposed in both CPU and GPU weather queries, and terrain debug visualization was updated to render temperature and snow-related attributes. The temporal mode for clouds and glass clouds, pretty cool, saw further progress to get it ready for release. The team also improved quality when viewing a planet from far orbit and optimized guide storage. Ongoing work is targeting the stability of the upsampled image under little to no or no motion, sharpness of results, and the removal of transmittance halos. Important to note, what we are reading about here, while we have been seeing a lot of bug fixing going on during this, we've even talked a little bit about content, it is important to keep in mind that they are clearly still working on 1.0 focused features. We're seeing a lot of reporting here on dynamic weather. We're seeing lightning talk, we're seeing snow talk, we're seeing rain talk, all given local precipitation values and planetary variations. So this is a fairly wide-ranging monthly report. It's not bad. Tech art and animation. Give us the good news. Last month, the technical animation team continued refining the DNA head pipeline that drives every character face in the verse, resolving alignment and expression issues across several background character heads and restoring save and load support for hybrid DNA heads. Work also progressed on head exports for the Tumbril Cyclone's driver and passenger alongside fixes to the facial expression system that keep performances reading naturally. New meshes for a new creature family progressed and are now ready for playtesting, while weak spot implementation moved forward on the Apex Sand Valacar. This is the first time I think they've called it the Sand Valacar specifically. Also, another mention of new features, or new creatures. Sorry, they rhyme. Significant R&D went into cloth throughout July, including new tools for proximal face constraints and per vertex goal weight painting that will let fabric react more naturally to a character's movement. The team also refined the corrective shape system behind facial rigs, including a fix for jaw movement bleeding into collar motion. That's good. That's good. I was worried about jaw movement and collar motion. The Aegis Retaliator's cockpit was re-rigged and re-exported following an interior redesign, keeping its animations working seamlessly with the ship's refreshed interior. People were not happy with my Retaliator hate on the recent video. I compared all of the old Star Wars and Alien and Final Fantasy ships to Star Citizen ships, and one of my picks was the Retaliator to the B-17 Flying Fortress, I think, the Air Force ship, Air Force thingy. And I called it the ugliest ship in the game, and people were not pleased. It is, though, sorry. Work also continued on the game-wide usable refactor, covering door panels, buttons, and railings, alongside grip fixes for one-handed carryable props, new rigging for collectible items, and fully interactive arcade joystick prop. So this is also another, it doesn't say bug fixing, but this is again them trying to fix problems in the game by replacing the system that's already there. Together, these efforts reflect the team's ongoing focus on making every character, creature, and object in Star Citizen feel tactile and alive. And that is it, folks. That is it, my friends. That is the monthly report of July. New features, engine work, and all that jazz. We will now move on to the ship section, and we're going to do what's going on with new ships. If you enjoyed this, though, like I said, we do it every month. I'm sure there's a playlist or something that you can click on to see the rest of them. Cheers.